Hi everyone, this is Natasha, and I had promised to show you how to use these Spellbinders D Lites. It has one die cut. I already have them out. I picked up this poppy patch and wrought iron. Let me put those aside. And actually, just before I do, I wanted to show you the instructions that are inside. Ordinarily show you how to use these with different types of machines. The D-Lites will only show you the grand caliber instructions, but I'm going to show you how I use these in my Cuttlebug, because that's what I use. It's the quickest thing that I have next to me. You can, however, use some of these. I think both of these are small enough to fit through the little sidekick. However, because these are Spellbinder dies, so they're off-brand, I don't have the necessary shim at the moment, but I will, once I do receive it. I did order it yesterday. I will show you how to use it on the sidekick. The benefit of having the little sidekick, first of all, they're really affordable. Second, they're really small and easy to fit into a small space. So, but I do have my Cuttlebug, it's right here. So this is the card that I made using the poppies. And it's a gatefold card. Unfortunately, it's a sympathy card. So I've already made one. I'm going to show you how I cut these. There's a little bit of a trick. Any Spellbinders that have an intricate design are best cut using not just cardstock, but also some parchment paper, and I just grabbed that from my kitchen. So let me move this aside and I will show you with my Cuttlebug. So, and I'll show you each one. So here's my Cuttlebug. I'm going to open it up and grab all the plates that I need for this particular cut. So for the Cuttlebug, you need the A plate. Hopefully I'm not going to hit my camera too much. A C plate, and I put that next, and then the B plate. And as you can see, my B plate gets a little warped. I do flip it alternatingly for each cut that I do. C plate I try to keep as pristine as possible. I also keep another B plate without any cuts or mars in them, and this is optimum for embossing, so you don't transfer the cuts, and I'll show you that in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the die. Let me see if I need to adjust my camera just a little. There you go. So I have the A and C. I have my Spellbinders D Lites. I'm placing it cut side up. And these also emboss, so I'll show you just a quick little tip. I'm going to take my parchment paper, which is actually 2 layers. I just left it that way. You can use just 1 layer. I'm going to place that on top, and it's light enough where you could still see your actual die cut or die, and I'm going to place the cardstock over that, and then see how I'm going to do this. My B plate on top of that, and I'm going to send it through. There shouldn't be any crunching. I need to clean the bottom of my Cuttlebug so it suctions on. Alright, so I've run it through once. So let me show you something. You see how these cuts are really, really nice, but then you see a little bit of possible that didn't cut all the way through. So what I'm going to do now, just to ensure a clean cut, I'm going to place this back in the Cuttlebug, and I'm sorry, I have the camera in between my knees on the tripod, and I'm going to turn it quarter turn. Because of the way these machines are created, there's a roller at the top and there's a roller at the bottom. So there'll be optimum locations under those rollers where the pressure is the greatest. And that I have found for my particular machine on either side. So because I have this little section that I'm not certain about, I'm not going to try peeling it up in case it didn't cut all the way through pristinely. I'm going to turn it off to the side and try to catch this optimum locations on either side of my roller, and then run it through this way. And you'll have to check out your machine to see where your quote-unquote sweet spots are. Alright. I think this should be enough. Let me just move that off to the side. I did just drop that on my floor. So you see the impression was so great it did embed into the cutting surface, but that's fine. And you see it's starting to lift. I'm going to move this off to the side, and before we cut the really detailed fence, I'm going to peel this up. So I'm going to take the whole thing and peel it up. So as you can see, it cut through cleanly. And the reason ejection foam wouldn't work the best here is because this also can emboss, and if you add injection foam on your image, that's adhesive on one side, so it stays permanent to push the paper up each time you cut, you will not be able to emboss with it. So let me just get rid of some of the junk pieces. And then I'll peel it up and show you what it looks like. So the easiest way to peel this, push this through, is I don't use a sharp implement in case I pierce through my paper. And I just pushed it through these two largest holes, and I'm going to peel it up this way. There's some very, very delicate stems, so I'm trying to keep them intact. As you can see, everything cut. So now I have 2 layers of this parchment paper, which I will keep because I might use this for a little bit of a like a ghost effect on another project. And then this is the actual cardstock. So as you can see now, there's a couple of pieces left. I'm just going to poke them through, holding on to them with a little taunt, so because I don't want the delicate stems to get ripped. There you go. And that works pretty nicely. I have tried cardstock that's a little too thick. Then the layer that you're actually cutting ends up not being as cleanly cut, but you could see the stems, even though they're extremely thin, are very nicely cut and there's no rips. So let me just push that aside. So that's the image. I have another card that I need to make, so I will use that on this one. So I'll set that aside to do later, but let me show you. I always go through and clean out all of the pieces out in order to be ready to use it the next time. So there you go, really nicely, cleanly done. So this is the image of the wrought iron fence. So I cut this without anything underneath, and I did emboss it. As you can see, there's tiny little embossing on the tips of the tops of the fence, and this is not my favorite black cardstock, which we're going to use right now. Then I cut these two. This was my base layer. Instead of using parchment paper, I had something that I recycle, and this is waxy on both sides. It's kind of laminate-y. And this is the refuse from my foam, adhesive foam for rubber stamps. So I just saved it instead of tossing it and used that. So that was the first layer. So this cut really cleanly, and now I have 2 images that I could use. So I had a piece of that refuse that I used or upcycled, and then cardstock. This is just a little thicker than would produce clean cuts. As you could see, this is the cardstock that I would have wanted to use, and the stems on the fencing is just a little ratty. So let's try the parchment paper. So I'll grab my Cuttlebug. So I have a strip of parchment paper and a strip of my favorite cardstock, my black cardstock. And because it has texture, I'm going to put it texture side down. Let me grab my Cuttlebug, hopefully. And because this is a thin strip, I might be able to put it, let me just, you know what, let me put it this way. So I have A and C, and I think because it's so thin or narrow, I'll be able to put it in the sweet spot originally. So I'm going to put it off to the side, put the parchment paper down, oops, sorry, and can't see that, sorry, parchment and cardstock. Trying to line up, make sure I get everything. I cut that paper really close to the actual size of the image. Don't be stingy with your paper like I just was. I mean, it's nice to be frugal, but if you don't get your image cut properly, then you just have to do it all over again. Okay. And, oh, see, I'm moving it about and hitting my camera. Alright, maybe if I see it, I'm peeking around the corner from my camera. You know, sometimes it's much easier to do things that are not on camera. And again, if the image is not pristine, it's really because of my fiddling alignment. Alright. And this is not the most productive way to twist. But I'll get it done. Right? Alright, let me hold on to that. And again, the reason it's not suctioning onto my desktop is because I have it sitting on the floor, so it probably has dust, particles, possibly glitter. So, okay. So that's through. Well, almost. There we go. Move this out of the way. Hopefully that cut it on the first pass, because I did put in that optimum cutting surface. Can you see that? So let's try it out. And the only thing you have to keep in mind when using this little trick of having the parchment paper or tissue paper, you know, parchment paper, something thin, you will not be able to emboss as successfully. So let me push these out just gently, and I'm poking at an angle so I don't poke through the paper, because this is these holes are part of the image, but I want to pull them up first. So that comes up pretty quick, pretty easily. And I'm just going to poke out all these little remnants. They all did cut through, as you could see. And because the images are so the cut is so intricate, I'm just going to be ever so slightly careful when pulling these out, because I don't want them to get ripped. I'm not going to do every single one, but you get the idea. So you just peel these up, and then the bottom portion, which has the little curly cues, I would push out as well with my tool, like that. So because the image is so intricate, it does take a little bit of work just to get the little remnants out, but it's well worth the results, as you could see. So there you go. I don't have a project that I've created with a wrought iron fence yet, but there's the example of the poppy. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment. If you have any suggestions that have worked for you, that you like using intricate intricate spellbinders, I'd love to hear them. You're welcome to leave a comment or a video response. Thanks for watching, everyone. And because this is a thin strip, I might be able to put it, let me just, you know what, let me put it this way. So I have A and C, and I think because it's so thin or narrow, I'll be able to put it in the sweet spot originally. So I'm going to put it off to the side, put the parchment paper down, oops, sorry, and Can't see that, sorry. Parchment and cardstock. Trying to line up, make sure I get everything. I cut that paper really close to the actual size of the image. Don't be stingy with your paper like I just was. I mean, it's nice to be frugal, but if you don't get your image cut properly, then you just have to do it all over again. Okay. And, oh, see, I'm moving it about and hitting my camera. Alright, maybe if I see it, I'm peeking around the corner from my camera. You know, sometimes it's much easier to do things that are not on camera. And again, if the image is not pristine, it's really because of my fiddling alignment. Alright. And this is not the most productive way to twist. But I'll get it done. Right? Alright, let me hold on to that. And again, the reason it's not suctioning onto my desktop is because I have it sitting on the floor, so it probably has dust, particles, possibly glitter. So, okay. So that's through. Well, almost. There we go. Move this out of the way. Hopefully that cut it on the first pass, because I did put it in that optimum cutting surface. Can you see that? So let's try it out. And the only thing you have to keep in mind nicely, I have tried cardstock that's a little too thick, then the layer that you're actually cutting ends up not being as cleanly cut, but you could see the stems, even though they're extremely thin, are very nicely cut and there's no rips. So let me just push that aside. So that's the image. I have another card that I need to make, so I will use that on this one. So I'll set that aside to do later, but let me show you. I always go through and clean out all of the pieces out in order to be ready to use it the next time. So there you go, really nicely, cleanly done. So this is the image of the wrought iron fence. So I cut this without anything underneath, and I did emboss it. As you can see, there's tiny little embossing on the tips of the tops of the fence, and this is in my favorite black cardstock, which we're going to use right now. Then I cut these two. This was my base layer. Instead of using parchment paper, I had something that I recycle, and this is waxy on both sides. It's kind of laminate-y, and this is the refuse from my foam, adhesive foam for rubber stamps. So I just saved it instead of tossing it and used that. So that was the first layer. So this cut really cleanly, and now I have two images that I could use. So I had a piece of that refuse that I used or upcycled, and then cardstock. This is just a little thicker than would produce clean cuts. As you could see, this is the cardstock that I would have wanted to use, and the stems on the fencing is just a little ratty. So let's try the parchment paper. So I'll grab my cuddle bug. So I have a strip of parchment paper and a strip of my favorite cardstock, my black cardstock. And because it has texture, I'm going to put it texture side down. Let me grab my cuddle bug, hopefully. Ooh. Hi everyone, this is Natasha, and I had promised to show you how to use these Spellbinders D Lites. It has one die cut. I already have them out. I picked up this poppy patch and wrought iron. Let me put those aside. And actually, just before I do, I wanted to show you the instructions that are inside ordinarily show you how to use these with different types of machines. The D-Lites will only show you the grand caliber instructions, but I'm going to show you how I use these in my Cuttlebug, because that's what I use. It's the quickest thing that I have next to me. You can, however, use some of these. I think both of these are small enough to fit through the little sidekick. However, because these are Spellbinder dies, so they're off-brand, I don't have the necessary shim at the moment, but I will, once I do receive it. I did order it yesterday. I will show you how to use it on the sidekick. The benefit of having the little sidekick, first of all, they're really affordable. Second, they're really small and easy to fit into a small space. So, but I do have my Cuttlebug, it's right here. So this is the card that I made using the poppies. And it's a gatefold card. Unfortunately, it's a sympathy card. So I've already made one. I'm going to show you how I cut these. There's a little bit of a trick. Any Spellbinders that have an intricate design are best cut using not just cardstock, but also some parchment paper, and I just grabbed that from my kitchen. So let me move this aside and I will show you with my Cuttlebug. So, and I'll show you each one. So here's my Cuttlebug. I'm going to open it up and grab all the plates that I need for this particular cut. So for the Cuttlebug, you need the A plate. Hopefully I'm not going to hit my camera too much. A C plate, and I put that next, and then the B plate. And as you can see, my B plate gets a little warped. I do flip it alternatingly this way. And you'll have to check out your machine to see where your quote-unquote sweet spots are. Alright. I think this should be enough. Let me just move that off to the side. I did just drop that on my floor. So you see the impression was so great it did embed into the cutting surface, but that's fine. And you see it's starting to lift. I'm going to move this off to the side, and before we cut the really detailed fence, I'm going to peel this up. So I'm going to take the whole thing and peel it up. So as you can see, it cut through cleanly. And the reason ejection foam wouldn't work the best here is because this also can emboss, and if you add injection foam on your image that's adhesive on one side so it stays permanent to push the paper up each time you cut, you will not be able to emboss with it. So let me just get rid of some of the junk pieces. And then I'll peel it up and show you what it looks like. So the easiest way to peel this, push this through, is I don't use a sharp implement in case I pierce through my paper, and I just pushed it through these two largest holes, and I'm going to peel it up this way. There's some very, very delicate stems, so I'm trying to keep them intact. As you can see, everything cut. So now I have 2 layers of this parchment paper, which I will keep because I might use this for a little bit of a like a ghost effect on another project. And then this is the actual cardstock. So as you can see now, there's a couple of pieces left. I'm just going to poke them through, holding on to them with a little taunt, so because I don't want the delicate stems to get ripped. There you go. And that works for each cut that I do. C plate I try to keep as pristine as possible. I also keep another B plate without any cuts or mars in them, and this is optimum for embossing, so you don't transfer the cuts, and I'll show you that in a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the die. Let me see if I need to adjust my camera just a little. There you go. So I have the A and C. I have my Spellbinders D-Lites. I'm placing it cut side up. And these also emboss, so I'll show you just a quick little tip. I'm going to take my parchment paper, which is actually 2 layers. I just left it that way. You can use just 1 layer. I'm going to place that on top, and it's light enough where you could still see your actual die cut or die. And I'm going to place the cardstock over that, and then see how I'm going to do this. My B plate on top of that, and I'm going to send it through. There shouldn't be any crunching. I need to clean the bottom of my Cuttlebug so it suctions on. Alright, so I've run it through once. So let me show you something. You see how these cuts are really, really nice, but then you see a little bit of possible that didn't cut all the way through. So what I'm going to do now, just to ensure a clean cut, I'm going to place this back in the Cuttlebug, and I'm sorry, I have the camera in between my knees on the tripod, and I'm going to turn it quarter turn. Because of the way these machines are created, there's a roller at the top and there's a roller at the bottom. So there'll be optimum locations under those rollers where the pressure is the greatest. And that I have found for my particular machine on either side. So because I have this little section that I'm not certain about, I'm not going to try peeling it up in case it didn't cut all the way through pristinely. I'm going to turn it off to the side and try to catch this optimum locations on either side of my roller, and then run it through